when it was announced that Subriel Matias would be defending his WBC junior welterweight title against Dalton Smith, I was like, okay, let's get it. Because Smith is a worthy challenger. I've been watching Smith on the UK Matchroom cards for a couple of years. And Matias, who had one time at 140 been considered the boogeyman, needed an adversary that would give him a chance to showcase what he does best. And guess what? Saturday, January 10th fight between these two men didn't disappoint at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. This was a fight that you had to see to believe. And most didn't believe because they just didn't know both men enough. But such is the sport of boxing when it comes down to these type of scenarios, which is why I've always told people to watch boxing. Watch the sport. Because the more that you feel yourself in, the more you'll find yourself enjoying. Let's talk about this fight and what happened. Subriel Matias, the so-called boogeyman at 140 pounds, junior welterweight, took on Dalton Smith on Saturday, January 10th. This was a fight that was originally scheduled to be on DAZN when it was first announced. But somewhere along the way, Matchroom got an epiphany and decided to put the fight on pay-per-view.com. That was disappointing because I didn't think that this would be a pay-per-view type card with a main event with two fighters that a lot of people just don't know who they are. However, in the aftermath of the showdown that took place between these two warriors, it turned out to be pay-per-view matched up and fight in its finality. Listen, no one expected this fight to be as good as it was, but I did think that Dalton Smith was going to bring something to this matchup. Now, the thing about Subriel is he has been campaigning for quite a while at this division, but he doesn't have good defense. And at the age of 33 now, the battles may have been taking a toll on him, and that's nothing to take away from Dalton Smith at all. But what I'm trying to say here, what I am definitely saying directly, is Matias is the type of fighter that's wide open. He's either presenting himself as a pitcher of pressure coming in behind a high guard, never moving his head off center line, and will often give you opportunities to tag him. I remember his fight back in November of 2023 against Shohan Ergashev. And Ergashev started that fight out very well against Matias. Matias was taking shots flush and clean, but he was able to take them until his pressure wore Ergashev down. He ended up stopping Ergashev. But this fight against the likes of Dalton Smith means that there was a guy coming into this fight in Smith who was bringing a pedigree. Yeah, that's right. Dalton Smith was bringing pedigree, because though he had been campaigning on the European circuit, he has been in there and been doing some very good things. You see, when he defeated Jose Zepeda back in March of 2024, he had Zepeda out with a body shot in the 5th round. When I saw that fight, I took note, because Zepeda was never a guy that was going to rip the roof off with anyone, but he is definitely a blue-collar fighter. And when Smith dropped him with a body shot, it made me take attention, because it was the type of shot that reminded me of Mickey Ward. And the interesting thing there, the connection, Arturo Gatti fought Mickey Ward in a trilogy of bouts that was crowd-pleasing. And Gatti went by the name of Thunder. Well, Dalton Smith goes by the name of Thunder, but he has a left hook like Mickey Ward. Yeah. So as he began to climb the ladder, eventually someone was going to have to face him. And so it became Matias. The fight started out with Matias applying the pressure as he normally does and looking to walk Smith down. But Smith was prepared for that, unleashing a barrage of punches that had variety to them. Stiff jabs, snapping Matias' head back, stab jabs to the pit of the stomach, straight right hands to the rib cage and the pit of the stomach, and a variety of just moving his hands with hooking off of jabs and just letting his hands flow freely against Matias. Now, Matias has this knack for, like I said, coming at his opponents behind a high guard, but he'll keep his feet moving quickly to get right back on top of you. By the 2nd round, Smith had begun to take some shots from Matias. Now you could see blood from the nose, and you could see that Dalton was feeling the pressure of the situation. But then came something that I was waiting for. Smith began to make a decision in this fight that I am going to stand up against the bully. All of a sudden, Subriel Matias, who was doing good work by the 2nd round and going into the 3rd, they were having great exchanges. But what you were beginning to see was Dalton Smith was counter-punching Subriel Matias and punching with him and punching before and after Matias. And because of Matias's porous defense, he was taking the shots flush and clean. Now, Smith, who entered this fight 17 wins and no losses with 13 KOs, is, like I said, a puncher, nicknamed Thunder. Matias didn't respect that. And as the rounds began to go on, by the end of the 3rd, I believe, or if not the 4th round, you could see where Smith had hurt Matias a couple of times, and just before the bell rang to end the round, he looked like he was going to be in jeopardy. And so the 4th round came, and you could see that the fight was beginning to change. I also noticed a particular strategic tactic that Dalton Smith began to incorporate. When they would come in close and clash, as he would tie Matias up, he would walk him straight backwards. toward the ropes, toward the center post. It was an interesting strategy and a brave one to do, because it's the type of strategy that if you incorporate it correctly, it wears the other guy's legs out. And you could see Subriel was actually allowing it to happen because no one really ever did this with him in the ring before. And so began something that was different for Matias. The punches that Smith was able to land on him were beginning to land a little bit more clean. The punch placement of Dalton Smith was very good in this fight. Now, Subriel's punches were good as well, because Dalton took a couple of shots and got hurt on an occasion in the fight, but he buckled down and bit down and fought right back. It was the type of ebb and flow that the people were not expecting in this main event. And these two men began to do some things that made it very much a crowd-pleasing affair. Also, as he began to land his right hand after the body punches made Matias bring the high guard down and have his hands near his waist, opening him up for clean shots up top. Well-devised strategy by Dalton Smith, and now beginning to take over the fight. You could see that Matias was beginning to fall apart. It was something that really transpired in the heat of the moment, and most people didn't understand what they were witnessing. But it was a great opportunity for Dalton Smith, and he began to pick up on it, which is great. I call it ring IQ, when a fighter can recognize the climate of a fight and understand when he is supposed to apply the pressure even more. Now, think about that for a moment. When we talk about applying the pressure, ordinarily that would be attributed to the likes of Matias, right? But no, in this fight, Dalton Smith fought like the champion. He began to push Matias back, tie him up to stop his offense, and go after him. The next thing you know came the daunted fifth round, when a series of shots, including right hands from Dalton Smith, put Matias on the canvas for the first time in his career. Now, when he went down, he laid flat with his arms stretched out across the canvas as if he might not get up. But he woke up in the moment of, oh, I'm on the canvas, and thought to get up immediately. A bit too fast, because he wasn't in that position before. And that's when the referee decided to wave the fight off, because though he got up inside the count, Matias was very wobbly on his legs. And so Dalton Smith was the new WBC Junior Welterweight Champion. What a good fight, man, to start off the year. This is just January, and these two men put on such a battle that they're both to be commended. Even Matias celebrated Dalton for his victory. But I believe that this is a man who can carry himself well at junior welterweight, and he can beat fighters out there. Now, some people will look at him and say, oh, those UK guys. No, the UK is making a huge comeback in boxing with quality fighters throughout the divisions of boxing. You need to watch the sport to see exactly what I'm talking about. This was a great fight, and I would like to see what will be next for the likes of Dalton Smith. Maybe Alberto Puello, whom Matias just defeated, will have an opportunity to fight for the title again. Who knows? But it will be great to see Smith go forward. Matias' record now drops to 23-2 with 22 KOs. Both losses coming to UK fighters Liam Perro and now Dalton Smith. It'll be interesting to see what he wants to do with the rest of his career. He could come back, but we'll see. This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about this fight, and what do you see coming up next for Dalton Smith and Subriel Matias? Do you think that either man will be looking to fight the others in the division? Leave comments and let's discuss further. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.